Good morning, Kate, and welcome to my channel of Hope and Inspiration.
I am so excited to be here. It's so wonderful to see you. Yay!
I know, I can't believe it. I think the last time I saw you was at a harp workshop that you were giving in Markham, Ontario, right? We'll talk more about that in just a minute. But today, our subject matter is all about dementia and your experience and your journey with it. And more importantly, we're going to be talking about your new book release called Don't Let the Memories Fade, right? Which is all about a holistic approach to preventing dementia. Yes. But before you came up with the book and having done all the research, you had your own personal journey and experiences with it. And that really is the story that will unfold here today. So, like I said, welcome, because we'll also find out where you are in the world a little bit later on today. I'll let you tell us.
Okay.
Before we're going to get into your book, though, I just want to say that prior to the life you live now, you did live in Markham, Ontario. You had a thriving harp practice. You were no stranger to writing, both personally and professionally. And I think back a few years ago, you were just really honing in on, I think, what your actual purpose was going to be for this huge transformation in your life. So let's fast forward to today and tell us, Kate, how your life has changed. And we can start with where you live. Where in the world are you, Kate?
I am in Ecuador. I'm in it's called Punta Carnero, which is on the Salinas Peninsula. I'm on the Pacific Ocean. And I've been here for 3 years now, just 3 years. We moved here October 17th, 2017. It's been an amazing journey. We have a retreat center we own here. We hold healing harp. One of my first retreats was a harp retreat. I've held writing retreats. We have spiritual retreats here conducted by other people. It's just a wonderful place to connect. And it's been where I was able to finish the book, because I have my time and space. And of course, in the last 6 months with very few people around, it was a very quiet time, and I was able to get the book done and, hunker down and make sure that the message is getting out there.
Right. Okay. So let's just dive right into it and get into the book, which actually starts with your mother's story. So do you want to sort of open up the dialogue and tell us a little bit about your mom's story and her journey with dementia?
Sure. So in 2010, I returned after a 25-year hiatus in California and Nevada. I moved back to Canada because my mom had been just diagnosed with cancer for the 4th time. So I came back home, and she went through another cancer treatment. At the same time, she was really struggling with just words. She'd say, that thing there, when she was looking at a cup, or Daddy, she'd be talking to my dad, and she'd say, or to be talking to me, and she'd refer to Dad. She's, Daddy, you know what I'm talking about, because she couldn't come up with the words, but she would not admit that was really an issue.
Right.
Yeah, she was in denial. And I think my dad was too. Anyway, over the course of the treatment for the cancer, she got worse and worse. And I think that it was brachytherapy for the cancer, and it is barbaric. And I think that broke her mind a little bit. And she just went rapidly downhill per big personality changes. And she got a little bit violent, and it was a really bad time for everybody, because we didn't know. And my frustration as a holistic practitioner with sound therapy and nutrition, I'm like, why isn't anybody telling me what's going on here? Like, I don't know how to fix this. And of course, I'm a healer. I want to fix. So nobody could tell me why this happened, what we could expect, really, because it was so bizarre the way she went. Her process was very fast. So I started researching, And I just got right into, why is this happening? Why did she get this? It turns out my mother, besides all the radiation treatment that she had for 4 cancers, she also worked in a factory when she was younger. For 20 years, she worked in a factory that made the foam for car seats. What is that? That's a petrochemical. She breathed that in for 20 years. Then she opened her own business. My mother was a doll collector. And over those 15 of those years, she was avidly collecting dolls because that was her happy place.
Right.
She collected these beautiful dolls from all over the world, old dolls, new dolls. And then 5 years before she was able to retire from the factory, she built a doll store, and then it expanded into a museum. It ended up, she had the largest private collection of dolls in Canada at the time. She had this beautiful museum and all this. In the midst of all that, she got cancer for the first time when she first opened her store. So she had a lot of stress, and I'm sure that contributed to how quickly the cancer progressed then. So all the things that we know contribute to dementia. My mom was living. She had huge stress. Because she was working so much, she didn't cook. So she ate prepared foods, processed foods, stuff from Kentucky Fried Chicken, And then she had exposure to all these chemicals, and she had the dealing with the radiation. And so, it was the perfect storm.
Right.
Over those years then, from that first time, so she was 62 when she got cancer the first time. Over those years, the cancer kept coming back. And then by the time in 2010, she was 71, she had this it wasn't the last cancer, it was the 4th cancer. And it seemed to break her mind, but I think it was accumulation of all those things. Now that I've done all this research, I believe it was like the perfect storm, everything happening all at once. At the same time, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was going through menopause. So I'm a crazy woman with swollen joints. And I'm trying to deal with my mom. And it was just like, oh my God, the perfect storm all the way around. So the researcher in me came out, because I started my career as a paralegal, and my job at the time, many years ago, was as a researcher, legal researcher. So that legal hat came on, that researcher hat came on full tilt. And I just went in and I learned why she was sick, why I was sick, and I wasn't going to go down her road. So I had to fix what was wrong with me. I couldn't convince her to take the steps that she needed to take because her life and her mind was pretty well gone by then. I couldn't turn her life around. It was too late anyway. Now I know that it was too late, even though I wanted to fix it.
Right.
But I turned my life around. I improved my health. I have no more symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. I cleared the brain fog. I lost 42 pounds, and I just feel amazing. But it's all from the steps that I learned trying to figure out what was going on with my mom. And so for the 10 years from then, it's just improved my life immensely. And since then, I've been able to help mostly women, although I have a couple of young men. Actually, really interesting that young men who are feeling that their brains are, and I think stress has a lot to do with it, but they're feeling scattered and they have brain fog. And so they're coming to me for nutritional guidance, and I'm getting them, set up so that they are choosing a lifestyle that is more conducive to long-term health all around, but especially brain health.
So the research that you did on this disease has really changed your life, but it's changed your life for the better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Even how quickly I can learn a piece on the harp. It's really interesting. There are so many things that have changed. I picked up the ukulele 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And because I have a child here that I do therapy. He has ADHD and he has quite a stutter. And I do therapy with him on vibroacoustic, and his mom, he realized that he loved playing my harp. Obviously they're not going to get him a harp, but his mom bought him an ukulele. So for me to work with him better, I thought, well, I better get one and learn it. So I did. And it's an easy instrument anyway, but
Right.
it was amazing how quickly I can remember the chords. I can remember where the notes are on the fretboard. And that would have been a real struggle for me 9-10 years ago.
So it's improved memory considerably.
Very much. And learning speed.
And learning speed. So it's interesting that in your book, you state that doctors are trained to look, that they're trained to look beyond the pharmaceutical solutions. Actually, I think what I'm trying to say is that they're not trained to look beyond the pharmaceutical solutions for this disease. And do you really believe that to be true? And if so, why? Tell me why.
Well, I'm speaking mostly from personal experience here. So firstly, my mom and now my dad, who had strokes 3 years ago, and he's definitely going down that dementia path. Right. And I'm 5,000 kilometers away, so there's not much I can do. But the doctors that we spoke to when my mom started exhibiting, okay, we'll put her on this drug. And I don't remember which particular Alzheimer's drug it was at the time. There are basically 3 that they use. She got a little bit better for a little while, but then she just cascaded so fast, like literally within a month. She was like, wow. And now that I know that really Alzheimer's, we know that the plaques and tangles that are created from proteins in the brain, they basically destroy the brain cells and make it difficult for messages to get from neuron to neuron. That's what Alzheimer's, that's the actual thing that kind of dementia is differentiated from every other kind of dementia. For people who are watching and don't know, that's the difference. We have these actual clumps of tangles that are hanging around in the brain. What the pharmaceutical industry is doing is trying to destroy those plaques and tangles because they understand that that's where the problem is. But what they're not addressing is why those plaques and tangles are there. Okay. And it's like cancer. We got to get rid of the cancer cells, but they don't address why the cancer cells are there. What caused those cancer cells it's because our immune system is either deficient, or in the case of Alzheimer's, it is the brain's immune system going into overdrive. Those plaques and tangles are the brain's way of trying to protect itself from something that is attacking it. That can be inflammation, that can be insulin resistance, that can be many toxicity, and that's what it was. I'm sure that's what it was for my mom. So the brain was creating a protection, but the pharmaceutical model is just to get rid of those tangles. They're not trying to get rid of what's causing it. They're not trying to fix that. Now, there are many doctors like Dr. Bredesen, he's probably the most famous, the doctors Shirzai in California. They're working on more prevention because it's true that once it's early mid-stage, you're not going to be able to fix it. You can slow it down, but you're not going to be able to fix it. But if you catch it early enough, you can reverse that by helping the immune system react more appropriately, by cutting out the things that cause the inflammation, that cause the diabetes, that cause, all of the other problems. So that's the allopathic medical model, no matter what the disease is, right? Cut, burn, and poison to get rid of whatever it is that's causing the symptoms, but you're not getting rid of the reason the symptoms are there.
So what you actually reveal in your book was running parallel to what you were experiencing in your own life. And that was all of this stuff like the brain fog that you were having, and you knew instinctively that you were toxic. And you had to clear that out. And there's so many products on the shelves today for things like this. It's really hard to figure out what is going to be the best thing for me. But what I love about your book is you take it right back to the root of it all, to the start of this is the beginning. Let's start here and work back. And so I'll mention that what I found interesting in your book is the setup of it is that the first 10 chapters, you're explaining why you're doing everything that you're doing, which actually helps the reader prepare for what's to come. because it's in chapter 11 where you go into the 8-week program that is structured around the 3 pillars, as you say, the body, mind, and spirit. You've got the recipes in there and the meal plans, meditations. It's all in there. And the book is such a different approach as opposed to going into the stores, buying a product on the shelf, using it and expecting it to be some sort of a miracle worker. You're taking us right back to the beginning. This is where you need to start, and this is why, and this is the process. This is what we're going to do together to help clear you up so that you'll feel better, so that you'll feel healthier. And it's a really different read. So tell us about the structure of your book and why you put it together this way.
Yeah, so it's firstly, a lot of people don't understand all the different kinds of dementia and what that means. Mm-hmm. So the first chapter is really, what is this? What is happening? Why? What's the difference between Lewy body and where does Parkinson's fit in and all that? Because people just say dementia and there's this big, or Alzheimer's and everybody. So I wanted to explain that and then go through where those come from. Right. So it's a lot easier for us to take steps to improve our health, to improve whatever, if we understand why, you know, like it's like when you have a small child and you want them to do something and they say, why? Well, why is I give the why first. So we know that inflammation is a huge contributor. It's one of the biggest contributors to dementias of all kinds. Diabetes and obesity, they go hand in hand. Bigger belly, smaller brain. That's a physical fact. So we tackle diabetes and obesity because they go hand in hand most of the time. We tackle stress because stress, do you know that women are twice as likely, you probably know this because of your work, women are twice as likely to become demented after the age of 65 than men.
Wow.
Twice
no, I didn't. Never heard that stat before. Very interesting.
The reason, were a bunch of reasons, but one of the reasons is the way we process cortisol, how long cortisol stays in our bodies. So for women, we have that stress response and the cortisol doesn't go away right away. That's why they talk about, stress belly, cortisol belly. Well, that's because the stress causes the cortisol to hold on, and we hold on to the fat because it disrupts everything. It disrupts everything. That means we have problems with the brain and the gut itself, which means inflammation, which contributes to it. So cortisol and stress. So that's why I talk about stress a lot, especially for women. We've got to get it under control. We have to deal with it in a healthy way. I don't mean by drinking. I don't mean by sleeping pills. I mean by dealing with it in a healthy way. And that's why meditation is so important.
Okay.
So we talk about stress and then we bring meditation into it. We talk about inflammation. I talk about cutting out dairy and many other things because they are such inflammatory foods. We talk about diabetes. In the answer in part 2 is we cut out sugar and all processed foods because almost all processed foods have added sugars. You don't know what the name of that sugar is because there are so many, it's hiding under so many things. So that's why I chose and sleep. Oh my gosh, you have to get good sleep. Otherwise you know what happens when you don't sleep for a night, you don't have a good night's sleep. The next day you feel terrible. Your brain's in a fog. Think about that on a long ongoing basis, what that's doing to you. Yep. So I explain those risk factors so that when I ask you to do these changes in your life, you understand why. Because for a lot of people, cheese is like, I have to have my cheese. I can't live without cheese. I can tell you, as someone who used to really love cheese, you can live without cheese. You really can. And your body and your brain will thank you. And the animals will thank you. And the planet will thank you. So we can do without it, but you have to understand why that's important. Because we all have to have a reason for taking the steps. If we're going to have to give up something or we're going to have to change something, we need to understand why.
Right. You break it all down so beautifully and simply in a manner that is very understandable and relatable. So I thank you for that because it's packed with so much information. But you give us that, here's the problem, here's the solution. So how to get from A to B. I'm sure the challenges are real though, because you're talking about massive changes in how we live, in becoming healthier, in how we're going to take food in, and the kinds of foods we're going to have to give up if we are really serious about getting on top of our health. And your focus seemed to be really centered around that gut health, which we're hearing about so much more today.
Yes, yes, I'm so glad. I mean, I'm just now putting together a summit, an online summit for people to talk about how different aspects of what we eat and how we react to stress and so forth, all about the brain. I'm tying it all into the brain. And I have 2 people coming on about gut health because it's so important. And we just, you can't stress it enough for everything. It's not just about Alzheimer's or dementia. It's about cancer. It's huge. I mean, you've got to have a healthy gut if you're going to be able to keep cancer at bay. There's a fellow by the name of Chris Wark who defeated cancer. He was stage 3 cancer, and he defeated it by changing his diet, and by becoming more alkaline, by boosting the friendly bacteria in the gut. So yeah, the gut is hugely important, and you're seeing it everywhere. But people also don't understand what that means. What does a healthy gut mean? A healthy gut means that you have a balance of healthy flora and fauna in your gut. And that means you don't want to be eating things with antibiotics, which is glyphosate. So you want to eat organic as much as you can. But you really need to monitor the health of your gut. And it's really easy to do, especially if you're in North America. Here it's a little harder because we don't have access to so many of the online services. But in North America, you can send a little stool sample and you can find out exactly what bacteria you have. And they tell you whether it's good or bad. And then you can take the steps to improve your gut health so you have a better chance of being healthy all the way around.
It's not just it's more than being healthy all the way around. It's actually, if you want to live a long life too, right? It's really what's going to extend your life. And especially when you're in your 50s. And looking at longevity and being healthy, I really think gut health, it starts with that, or looking at that at least. And this whole subject of dementia is so near and dear to me because I am working in the industry and managing people that have various stages of dementia. So talking to you about it from a preventative perspective is so enlightening. So I really thank you for all this great information. When we're thinking about your book and what you've put together for us, what makes it a success? Because when we get to chapter 11, and that was the whole structure of the 8-week program, what makes it successful for us? Like for somebody like me who's just going to go and pick up your book and say, okay, I want to do this. What makes it successful? So
firstly, remember that anything you do is better than nothing. So I think people look at a program like this because it's pretty extensive, but it's also just one bite at a time. It's like my mama used to say, it's like eating an elephant, just do it one bite at a time, because she would have such big projects all the time. So like in the first week of the 8-week program, I asked people just get rid of sugar. Just eliminate that.
Kate, that's a big ask.
I know.
That's a big ask because sugar's everywhere.
I know.
In everything we're going to put in our mouth. But you're saying get back to the natural.
Get back to whole foods, whole natural foods. Yeah. I am so blessed here in Ecuador. I can go to the mercado and I can get a table full of fresh fruits and vegetables for $12. I mean, literally it covers my table.
I can imagine. Yeah.
It's pineapples, and this is mango season, so I'm in heaven. I can put mango in everything.
Yeah.
But so for me, it's inexpensive, but I understand. I am North American after all, and I understand how expensive, especially in the winter, it can be to eat whole foods. However, you can still eat frozen foods. Frozen foods, because they're picked when they're fresh. They're frozen right away. There's nothing wrong with eating frozen broccoli. Just steam it just a little bit Don't take all the nutrients out, but that is we have the options. And if you can buy organic, even better. I really recommend organic whenever possible, certainly for the dirty dozen. And I tell you about that in the book. So little bites at a time. And I know it's hard, and sugar is a big ask. I'm just dealing with that with one of my nutrition clients here in Ecuador. He's like, but I just have a little bit of my coffee. And I'm like, honey, I don't care if it's just a little bit. You're not going to drink it anymore, because every little bit that you take affects the quality of the bacteria in your gut, and it affects your ability to process insulin. So it is one step at a time. And I do give you body, mind, and spirit in every week. So every week you have one little step more. And if you can't do it in just 1 week, that's okay. You can take 2 weeks to do that. And then the next time you start, you can do that, because if you've never meditated before and you just don't even know how to start, then it's going to take a little bit to build up to even meditating for 10 minutes. And that's okay. You can take 2 weeks to do that. You can make it a 16-week program. The point is you're doing a little bit at a time, because anything you do is better than nothing.
So start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere. And the reason I did it that way is because sometimes it's better to start with the hardest thing. It's like when you have a really big project and you have a whole bunch of little things that you could do that day. If you start with the bigger project, you feel like you've accomplished a lot more instead of doing a whole bunch of little things. And that's why I chose the sugar at the start, to try and get rid of that, and the processed foods, because the processed foods have so many other things in them besides sugar that you really need to be aware of, because that comes in under toxicity.
Right. And so there's the recipes, the meal plans, and the meditation was a huge component I found in your book as well.
Yeah. And I actually have a program. We just finished our pilot program. It's called Tune Up Your Brain with Music, Mindfulness, and Meditation. And I developed this program for people who are just starting out on thinking about mindfulness and meditation. So these people that joined the first program, they went from not meditating at all, from not understanding mindfulness at all, to incorporating it into their daily lives. And we finished 3 weeks ago, and I'm still getting people calling me and say, Kate, I can't believe it. I did 20 minutes of meditation and I feel so much better and so much calmer. And so, that is a hard thing if you're not used to it. And so I have a whole bunch of and online, I'm just starting to put some of my guided meditations online. I have one right now called Brain Coherence, to get the right and the left sides of the brain going together, building up the corpus callosum. So I'm working really hard on helping people take those little steps, because those little steps, pretty soon, one after one after one, you're a mile, and then you're 25 miles, right? So that's how I like to build it.
You even talk about the dangers of social isolation and paying attention to people who might be suffering from being alone, which I thought was an interesting insert into the book overall as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
So a huge part of our brain health has to do with having good social connections. Not a lot necessarily, but good social connections. So you have to have people. There are studies that show that people who are alone have cognitive decline much faster than people who have a good social circle. So obviously right now I'm concerned. I wrote 2 blogs on it because I'm so concerned about people being isolated now. It's very, very important to have contact with other human beings in a meaningful way. It keeps your mind going conversationally, and I know at this time, a lot of that is coming like we're talking now. But for older people who are already having cognitive issues, this is not really an option because they don't understand it. My mom, in the last few months of her life, my sister would go to the nursing home and her phone, and we try to do FaceTime, but my mom couldn't understand it.
Right.
So this personal thing is very, very important, and it makes the mind sharper. It helps push back the time that cognitive decline will start. And that's why I say to people, if you're going to take a class, if you're in a position where you can, go monitor a university class. Go and hang out with young people that you might never have a chance to hang out with Just go and audit a class, learn something new, and you've got the contact with new people and people with similar interests.
Right.
Dancing, taking dancing classes.
Movement. Yeah.
Movement. So we need the movement, exercise itself. But if you take a dance class and you're moving with someone, it's even better. Every little thing we can do to have quality social interaction is hugely important.
Right, right. Sort of getting back to having a quality life experience for everybody right now is the challenge, right?
It is.
It's the challenge. There is something in your book for everybody to learn about Alzheimer's and dementia, your health, your happiness. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your information. I know you're super busy right now. Not just with the release and the launch of your book. There's so many other things that you have going on in Ecuador. If people wanted to reach out to you, Kate, where are you on social media? Like, where's the best place for people to connect?
I'm on Facebook,
Okay.
and I have, so Kate Kunkel on Facebook, and you can tell because that's the lady with a harp and on a beach. Yep. So that's me. And I have
not a bad setup, okay? Not a bad setup with a harp and on the beach. Come on.
And katekunkel.com is my website. So there I have recipes. I have a page of recipes.
Amazing.
And I have a blog. So even right there's all kinds of information you can tap into right away. And the idea behind the blog was I was doing it as I was writing the book so that I could share information I was learning, because I didn't want people to wait until the book was done. I wanted them to get started now. Because every moment is important.
Absolutely. And the blog content is so useful. And you're a great writer to begin with. And the way you explain things is fantastic. So between the wonderful website that you have, very easy navigation, you're always blogging and keeping people up to date with what's going on. So I do recommend to our listeners that they definitely check you out. And I just can't believe that this is all we have time for. We have to do this again. Do you have another book coming out, Kate? I don't know. I have a feeling, but are you working on something else?
Right now I'm just working on a workbook to go with this book. So the print version comes out the end of this month, and I'm hoping by mid-December I'll have a workbook so that when everybody gets into gear to get healthy in January, as is always the thing people seem to want to do, I'll have the workbook ready so that people can just jump right in.
Oh, sounds like a plan. And as I said before, your information, what you have shared with us, is so appreciative at this moment in time. We need so much more of it, but we appreciate your wisdom and everything you're out there helping us learn to take better care of ourselves. Thank you so much. It is all we have time for. So I do want to say thank you again to our listeners for tuning into my channel of Hope and Inspiration. If they wanted to connect with me, you can. I'll leave the information in the description box below. It concludes our feature interview today, Kate. Until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. Take care and bye for now, Kate.
Bye for now.